Sup nerds, here's my updated Megidramon / Gallantmon deck profile. Starting off with our Tamers, we have actually switched over to the BT12 Digimon or Gigimon, however you want to say it. The draw is really nice from the EX2 one, but you actually end up decking yourself too often in grindier matchups, and also the extra 1,000, so this adds 1,000 DP to the maximum of your DP based deletion effects. This comes up a lot, and it actually lets you hit a lot of really important thresholds to just pop random things on your opponent's side of the field. And on to our rookies, we are playing 4 of the best Gilmon, 4 EX2 Gilmon. On play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a card with Growlmon or Gallantmon in its name, and 1 Takato Matsuki among them to your hand, place the rest of them on the bottom of your deck, blah blah blah. And then the inheritable is when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Growlmon or Gallantmon in its name, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. Gets bumped to 4,000 with the Gigimon or Digimon, however you want to say it. So pretty nice. 4K is basically any rookie and some champions. And then we have 4 of the Starter Deck 7 Gilmons, the Warp Gilmons. Your turn, if your opponent has level 6 or higher, you can warp this guy into a Gallantmon in your hand for a cost of 4, ignoring its Digivolution requirements. And we are playing the BT13 Gallantmon, so that actually lets you warp into him for 4, which is pretty nice. Then his inheritable is once per turn when the opponent's Digimon is deleted, draw 1. And then we're playing 3 Gilmon from EX4. He was on top of Digimon for 0, so ignore this right here. And his on play is if the total number of both players' trashes is 20 cards or more, he gains Rush for the turn, which is pretty lit because you can just play him and then use one of your Warp Takatos to warp into a Gallantmon, and he maintains the Rush because he gains the Rush for the turn. It's not just like he has Rush as a static effect. I would like to play this at 4 just to see it basically anytime I ever wanted to see it, but 3 you see it often enough where you're not going to miss it most of the time. And our last 2 rookies, we're playing 2 Solarmon from Starter Deck 12. All turns, players can't reduce play cost. This doesn't actually interact with BT13 Gallantmon that reduces its own play cost because you have to have nothing in play in order for that to actually be relevant. Some people that might think that conflicts, it does not, because if this guy's on the field, you couldn't do that anyway. This is in here strictly because you have a pretty rough matchup versus Blue Flare and cross decks that just like can drop a bunch of dudes real quick and ping into your security before you get set up, because there is no real defense in this deck. The defense in this deck is how good of an explosive offense it has. And that is it for our rookies. We are playing 13. And on to our champions. We are playing 4 EX4 Black Growlmon. This guy is by far the best champion in the deck. The only bad thing about him is the fact that he's not just called Growlmon, so you can't use him for your Warp Takatos effect. But he evos for 2 on top of all of your Gilmons. He will evo for 3 on top of your Solarmon. That's pretty rare that you'll do that. When Digivolving, both players trash the top 2 cards of their decks. Then you can return a Gilmon or a Growlmon or Gallantmon from your trash to your hand. So this literally lets you add any card back from the trash besides your options and your Tamers and your Solarmons. Then the on deletion effect is the same effect. You just add anything back from your trash besides your options, your Tamers, and your Solarmons. Really good effect. This basically ups the consistency of this deck by a substantial margin, to the point where I don't feel playing memory boost in this deck is necessary. And that's pretty rare for me to feel comfortable doing that. Because typically I would play 4 in any deck that you can fit them in. Then on to our next champion. We're playing 4 Growlmon from EX3. Evos for 2 on top of your Gilmons. He cannot evo on top of Solarmon, so this is something to keep in mind. He only evos on top of purple rookies that are not named Gilmon. Doesn't really come up very often, but just so you know. The when Digivolving, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. Gets bumped to 4K with the rookie. And then if no Digimon was deleted by this effect, both players trash the top 2 cards of their deck. And the when attacking inheritable is once per turn when attacking, you may delete one of your other Digimon to have this Digimon gain security attack +1 for the turn. So this is so we can actively delete our Megidramons, especially in matchups where like our Megidramon may get stunned by like a blue deck or something like that, or your Megidramon already swung. Like this gives us a little added offensive firepower that I feel like was missing in other iterations of this deck. In a lot of instances, you can get like multiple extra checks out of this, because if you pop a Megidramon, you can play back a Gilmon that has Rush and get an extra swing out of that. So like it can turn one swing into 3 checks basically, because you're getting 2 checks off this and an additional check off the Gallantmon that's played, which is pretty sick. And then our last 2 champions, we're playing 2 Groundmon from BT12. When Digivolving, if you don't have a Takato in play, you can play one from your hand. This doesn't come up very often because a lot of times you build your champions in the raising area and then you promote and then pop off into level 5 or level 6. The Inheritable is actually the reason why I really play this card. Is your turn while a Digimon has Groundmon or Gallantmon in its name, it gets 2000 DP. This lets you beat over certain matchups like D-Reaper, for instance. If that's a deck you run into, you can warp Takato with this guy and your Gallantmon that has Raid and just swing over the mother with 16,000 DP because you get 2k from this and 2k from the Takato. It felt necessary to run this so you could hit 16k pretty easily in the warp scenarios over the Groundmons that gain you memory and stuff to keep turn, because you don't really keep turn that consistently when you do that. And that is it. We are playing 10 champions. Onto our ultimates. We are playing the best ultimate in the deck for EX3 War Groundmon. Digivolves 3 from all of our level 4s. When Digivolving, both players trash the top 3 cards of their deck. Then if any one player has 5 or more cards in their trash, you can play a Gallantmon or a Takato from your hand or trash for free. This is how we spam out our Takatos. This and our Megidramon on deletion is really how we get our Takatos on the field. That's why this guy isn't super necessary, because we have way more explosive ways to put Takatos on the field than this guy. This is amazing. You can play the Gallantmon that searches. You can play a Rush Gallantmon to get an extra check. Like, this guy is amazing. This is by far my favorite ultimate to see. And then we are playing 4 War Growls from BT12. When Digivolving, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less. Gets bumped to 5k with the Tama. If no opponent's Digimon was deleted by this effect, you may Digivolve this Digimon into a level 6 Digimon card with Gallantmon in its name for the Digivolution cost. When this Digimon would Digivolve by this effect, reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. I don't know why they worded this way. It's way too many words. I feel like this is easier. There's a way easier way to say that, but anyways. So it lets you, if you pass turn with his Evo, it lets you Evo into somebody else and then blitz into their security or into their guys. Also, it doesn't even have to be passing turn. You can Evo into this guy, go to 0, and still use his effect as long as you didn't pop anything, which is pretty cool. And then end of attack, Inheritable, once per turn. If your opponent has no Digimon in play, and this Digimon has Groundmon or Gallantmon in its name, gain 2 memory. That is a really cool effect, because if you like warp with this guy as your source or use his effect to Evo into something and then blitz, you can actually pull the memory back to your side sometimes, or just like choke your opponent to 1 after just popping off on their board. Really, this is the best one to see in your trash when you're using your Warp Takato effect. But this guy's the best one to have in your hand. And that is it. We were just playing 8 ultimates. Onto our megas. We are playing 4 Megidramon from EX2. This guy's the best early game mega you can play, in my opinion. So he evos for 5, which is pretty steep, but his effects, I think, make up for it. So he's 13,000 DP, which is pretty massive. Also, his effect treats him as Chaos Gallantmon, whether he's like it's card or Digimon. So like whether he's in play or whatever, he's always treated as also being Chaos Gallantmon. So like all of your Gallantmon effects also count for him, which is pretty nice. And then when Digivolving, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 10,000 DP or less. That gets bumped to 11k with one of your Tamas on the field, which is really nice, because that's a lot of level 6s. If you get 2 or 3 of your Tamas out in play, this guy's popping basically anything that's not a 7. And then if no Digimon was deleted by this effect, trash the top 5 cards of both players' deck. And on deletion, you may play 1 Gallantmon and 1 Takato from your hand and or trash without paying memory cost. So this guy floats into a rookie and one of your Tamers. This guy is amazing. He's basically, so this is who you want to stick out there early, because you basically don't care what they do to him as long as it doesn't get like bot decked or bounce. But if you're playing against a red deck or a deck that has to attack over this in order to clear it off the field, that's the best feeling in the world, because it's to your benefit that happens. And we are playing 2 Gallantmon from BT12. This is the Raid Gallantmon. Also, when Digivolving, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. Gets bumped to 7k with the Tama. When attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6k or less. Gets bumped up to 7. If no opponent's Digimon was deleted by this effect, trash a top card of your opponent's security stack. This is pretty cool because you can raid into your opponent's Digimon, and if they don't have something smaller in the field, it trashes a top card of their security. So he sort of has piercing, except for it's getting trash, which is pretty sick. Very good card, necessary for Reaper matchups and random things like that. Like, you don't want to lose to just rogue decks because you don't have an out. And raid is still a very powerful mechanic, just against any deck, basically. And then we are also playing 2 Gallantmon from BT13. He does EVE over 5. Pretty drastic, although it's not the end of the world if you'd have to pay the full 5 for him. 13,000 DP, pretty massive. He does have this effect where when you would play this card from your hand, if you have no Digimon in play, reduce the play cost by 2 for every 5 total cards in both players' trash. If you ever get to where there's 35 cards total in both players' trash, he's free. So you can just boom, and then he has rush, so you can just swing. And then his on play / when digivolving / when attacking, not once per turn. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, gets bumped up to 7 if you have a Tama in play. And then if no opponent's Digimon was deleted by this effect, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 13,000 DP or more. So any boss monster, if you clear all their smaller guys, you can just swing with this guy or just drop him and pop their boss monster, which is pretty sick. This guy's basically like a searchable Gaia Force. Like, he's an incredible piece that was added to this deck. Going into him early kind of sucks unless you're forced to, just because like he doesn't float into anything. So like, and you don't have any protection. So if he does go away, you just have to rebuild your whole stack. But typically, if this guy comes out, he is mutilating your opponent's board. So once they do answer him, it's not really that big of a deal. And that is it. We're playing 8 Megas. On to our level 7s. We're of course playing 2 win buttons. Gallantmon Crimson mode. Evos for 6, has 15,000 DP. When digivolving, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP, so if it's a tie, everything goes. And then when attacking, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. Add 1 to the number of cards trashed by this effect for every 10 cards in your opponent's trash. So you will notice a lot of our line mills cards. And mid to late game, you can kill people from like 3 to 4 security by just evoing into this guy and blitzing at them. It'll clear their field. That'll add even more cards that are trash. Then you blitz, trash all their security, and it's game. Very, very powerful win button for this deck. And then on to our Tamers. We are playing the most important Tamer in the deck, 4 Takato Matsuki from EX2. Your turn, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, you may suspend this Tamer to gain 1 memory. So he makes all of your effects and all of your evos and stuff, if they do pop something, that much cheaper, which is pretty nice. And then your turn, one of your Digimon would digivolve into a Digimon with Gallantmon or Growlmon in its name. That Digimon gains when digivolving Blitz for the turn. So this is what lets you evo into all your expensive stuff and still swing at your opponent. That is why he is so important. You lose so much offensive momentum and pressure and tempo if this guy is not in play when you're evoing into your big dogs. So that's why I bumped him up to 4. Like, you absolutely need to see this guy early and often. And having multiples on the field is beneficial. So like, seeing a bunch of them isn't bad at all. And then we are playing 3 memory setting Takato from BT12. Set your memory to 3, and then main once per turn by placing this Tamer and 1 Growlmon and War Growlmon from your trash in any order as the bottom Digivolution cards of one of your Gilmon. That Digimon may digivolve into Gallantmon in your hand for the cost, ignoring its level. The Digimon digivolved by this effect gets plus 2,000 DP for the turn. So mid to late game, you can just promote a Gilmon or play your Rush Gilmon from your hand and then warp into a Gallantmon. It has to be Gallantmon specifically, so it can't it can't warp into Megidramon, but that's fine. That's why we're playing the 2 best Gallantmons you can play in this deck. This lets you come out of nowhere and just pop off on your opponent after they think they've won. Whenever they clear a Megidramon, you float into a Gilmon and one of these guys. You're like, okay, cool, warp into this Gallantmon, pop all your field, and then swing at you. Yeah, I think this Tamer's a little underrated. I see people that play less than 3 of this card, and I'm just like, I want to be able to do this ASAP Ferg. So that's why I'm playing 3. And then our options, we are just playing 2 options. We were playing 2 Gaia Force from Starter Deck 1. Basically one of the oldest options in the game. A-cost option, delete one of your opponent's Digimon, security activate the main effect. Very, very simple. We're playing this for the simple fact that we don't want to lose to random floodgate boss monsters. Like Venusmon is the best example I can think of off the top of my head. The reason why this isn't Trident Gaia is because Trident Gaia, if checked in security, doesn't target, like you don't have the option of choosing your opponent's Digimon, it just pops the highest EP. This always lets you choose, and I think that's very important for not randomly losing. If you check one of these as security, it can keep you from dying. In most scenarios, this and Trident Guy are going to do the same thing, but there are scenarios where you would lose if Trident Guy is checked in security as opposed to this card. And also the 8 cost isn't that big of a deal because we are playing the Blitz Staccatos that would gain you a memory. And most of the time this is going to be like, I would say 5 or 6 memory whenever you do play it, when you tap those Tamers. Yeah, I think it's still important to play some number of security bombs in your deck if you can fit them. Because they can keep you from losing a game randomly, and I think that's important. I think that's a part of deck building. And I also don't just want to randomly lose to a Hydramon or a Venusmon or something like that if I can't out them immediately. But that is it. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything I didn't address, feel free to put them down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But I appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're interested in this kind of content. Want to come back for more. But until next time, see ya.